Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Beautiful Thursday morning from here in Lagos. I am Kayode Kikyodu.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And from Abuja, it's good morning. I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
Yeah, so, yes, we're going to go through the dailies, but in case you're wondering, no, it's not here. It's with you, Mark.
Indeed. Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us in the studio Mr. Chuks Oko, who is former special project editor of the Vanguard and Diet newspapers. He is currently the publisher of Clarion newspapers and managing editor, Nigerian Express. You're welcome to our Abuja studios this morning.
Thank you, Mope.
And let's see what the papers are saying this morning. Let's start with The Guardian. I'm looking at this one. Why federal government's planned asset sale can't boost revenue. Professionals want assets valued before sale. Concession. Not adhering to procurement law is illegal, says Wike. It's against fiscal responsibility to sell capital assets for recurrent purposes. That's another quote. I don't know who's speaking. Page 2 will give the details, but we've been seeing this on and off for a while now. Federal government looking to sell some of its assets to boost revenue. They're looking for money from everywhere, it was saying. But what do you make of this? I mean, how is the Bureau of is it privatization now going with this? Do you think that this has the potential to boost significantly Nigeria's earning capacity?
Well, you know, the problem is that very recently we have been having problems about financing the budget, and government had resorted to borrowing, and everybody is saying you're borrowing too much, you're burdening our economy. So naturally, they have to look for alternatives, you know, to fund the budget. But like you said, when that money that we recover from these assets will be enough to fund the budget, will be a different ballgame, because you know how it is with reselling. You're not going to get the real value of what you're doing. And in a situation in this country where everybody is always looking for sharp practices, you also have maybe the people who will be burdened with that exercise, trying to see what they can make, even for themselves. So it's a tough call, really. It might not give them the kind of money they want, but it might keep us from borrowing from outside.
Yeah, but looking at what we've experienced in the past and how far the sale of government assets in the past have gone, people have reason to be worried about, the process. I think that's the big word there, because oftentimes the accusation has always been they sell to their friends, and usually at a ridiculous rate. The asset is usually worth more than it has been sold for. So how do we ensure that they are able to make the most of the assets that they're selling?
Well, what we can do is asking the agencies. We have the agencies that are on ground to make sure that those things go right. Asking them to please keep their eyes open. Something we shouldn't be doing, really, because once you have an agency like ICPC, FCC, their duty is to regulate those things. We don't even need a special appeal to them. Once a process is started, they're supposed to step in and ensure that those things are done properly. But we might find ourselves in a situation where we're asking again, please, help us let this thing happen the way it should happen.
Well, that's what the Guardian is focusing on this morning. They also have other stories here for you. Akeredolu Makinde meets Buhari, gets nod to tackle criminals. Oshibajo to attend the Guardian book launches is also there as well. And if you look on top of the nameplate, they've been going on with the editorial for a while, and they have this: federalism is the answer after all. Well, let's leave it there for the Guardian, and let's slip it to Lagos. Chamberlain.
Okay, well, take a look at this particular one, Nigerian Tribune this morning, just writing interestingly. But Nigeria in a state of emergency, Buhari tells news service chiefs. So that big meeting which they had, some of the outcome coming through this morning. But this rider might interest you. Appointment of service chiefs illegal without Senate's approval. Falana. And then PDP continuing, they're asking ICC to probe and try sacked service chief. So that the first of those riders We've been down this road before, appointing service chiefs, the role the Senate have got to play. How do you think, because the reactions just kind of overran the thought of the illegality of or otherwise, or the role Senate had to play, but we're being reminded now by Mr. Falana. What say you of this one?
Well, if the Senate has to confirm, like you said, I don't know what the law says about that particularly. But if the Senate has to confirm, I'm sure the government will have put things in place to ensure that confirmation by now. But you also know that in matters of security, when you appoint people, you don't really wait for those confirmations. They come later. It has happened, like you said, we've traveled this road before. It comes a bit later. But there's a job to be done, and it has to be done immediately. And in a country as diverse as our own, you also get to see reactions to everything. You can never do anything right. Even when the right things are done, people must find a way to fault it. That's basically the thing. All the angles that people are coming from, these people are from this part of the country, the other part of the country, and all that. Those are all the reactions. And we're seeing the issue of legal now, whether they were appointed correctly or not. So I'm sure government, they have the right people to ensure that the right thing is done.
Well, I think they'll pardon you when you say you're not too conversant with the law, because the law is the law. So if they've got to proceed with the law first before this one,
what I mean is that
then
particular process.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but that's what it is. I mean, I remember Mr. Keyamo had written about this before, and they've gone to court on this matter and they cited legal precedents. But it's there for people to go ahead and take a look at and see, such that we always get it right the first time, all the time. As a matter of fact, I do remember that one. But still talking about security, this little piece, very important, I might add, above the lead story. My abductors sold me to herdsmen. That's according to Free Edo Immigration PRO, narrating his ordeal. Similarly, this one is just beneath that, all of this lead story. Hunter's ID card found with 13 armed men from Kebbi, arrested in Ibadan, ascribed to police. So do you see us making headway now that we've got new service chiefs in terms of the expectations from Nigerians, because they will be quick to cry wolf? I'm tempted to add even when there's none. What do you see happening?
Well, new service chiefs, yes, but they are inheriting a structure that is already with their own army, their own police, or their own navy or their own air force. The structure is already there on the ground. What they might just be contributing is saying, we normally use men A or men B in this aspect, so let's try men C or men D. So I expect the tempo to be up because new people are there. They would like to do something different from what's been happening so that we could hear them. But the expectations are not really high, if you ask me, because we have the same set of people on ground. Maybe they could do one or two things to get the morale high, and when the morale is boosted, maybe we could have better results. But I think they simply need to do something different from what we've been seeing all these years. Because
perhaps that's part of the point. Doing something different. Because I don't know why sometimes when you want to use football analogy, some may begrudge you. But you know, when you talk about men A or men D, if you sack a coach and the new one comes through, even if it has a Benjamin Mendy there, but they've got the same men, so he's supposed to get results with the same men. So in this case, isn't it a similar thing that because you knew you expected to get results, that's why they put them there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, immediately they get appointed, part of what they should be thinking is, I have this same set of people I'm working with. What do I do to make them do things differently? You saw what happened. Even the day after the appointment, or immediately they were appointed, there were very tangible results from the Boko Haram end. You know, the troops fought with renewed vigor and all that. So it's we're expecting that they themselves, the new services will say, fine, we'll be here. And luckily, two of those commanders have been there, right there at the theater of war. So I expect them to review strategies and decide and come up with ways that they can do things differently to get this things done. But otherwise, like I said, same players in the field. You really need to know what to do to them to get better results.
Okay, I'm really tempted to jump into the Mendy or Mani analogy, but take a look at Daily Trust this morning. And it's security. I mean, it's a big deal. Buhari to service chiefs were in a state of emergency, so expectations are definitely high on this one. We see CDS saying we'll tackle insecurity. Hold them to account, Northern elders. We need more mobile policemen. Makinde. Ondo begins herdsmen registration today. So apparently, maybe there was no registration before now, because you heard one of the farmers saying, well, we don't think there's any herdsman registered, before this point. So, seeing this one, we'll see how it plays out. It's on page 5 of the Daily Trust. But perhaps the story of the day for me will be the big pictures on the front page of the Daily Trust. And it shows female soldiers deployed to the Abuja-Kaduna highway received by Governor Nasir El-Rufai. 300 of them. I saw the news yesterday and I had goosebumps, goose pimples all over.
Why? Because there are 300 soldiers?
Because this just changes the face of war, as it were. It just opens our eyes to possibilities. For a lot of people, you know what, Mr. Chooks, seeing this 300 female soldiers deployed to Abuja-Kaduna highway, how do you feel with this one?
Well, my brother, you're a journalist. Even in journalism, we don't have men, we don't have women. And that's the way it is with the military. Those are very trained soldiers. You can't deal with them because you can't be saying these are women, so they'll do things softer. In fact, it has been shown that women actually, I'm telling you, they actually do things with more aggression when they are given the opportunity to do so. So I believe that the tactical commanders know what they are doing. These are well-trained soldiers. Forget about their sexes. So I believe that something better will happen in that axis.
I imagine Markwe wanted to respond to that, but...
Yeah, let's talk Markwe to a guest this morning too, on this subject matter.
Markwe, what do you think?
I lost you for a bit, Kayode. I didn't hear.
I was asking what
anything you said. What did you say? Sorry.
I was asking what you think about what Mr. Chook said about women, doing things even more aggressively, being more lethal when it comes to issues such as this. Is he right in that area?
Well, I sincerely hope that the bandits will not go and say, oh, they just put some women there, let us go and try them. I think that would be
still 300.
Oh, yeah.
I sincerely hope that they are not going to undermine them because of their sexes. That will be the undoing of those bandits. That's why I had to say, I pity anyone who says, oh, they are women. And they're soldiers. Well, I wish you good luck.
Absolutely. I will wish them the very best.
Well.
Absolutely. And this is good news, really. It opens our minds to a lot of possibilities in this war. But finally, let me just end with this one. Many killed as rival bandits clash in Katsina. That's also another angle. So, yes, we have the security agents doing their bits, but you see, the rival bandits are doing the killings themselves. So, good luck.
The Vanguard newspaper is next, and it's also leading with security or a lack of it. Insecurity, flush out all criminals in your state. Buhari tells Akeredolu, who's spoken extensively about this one, and a host of riders there. And you also see that one, how PIB will promote economic growth, transparency. I guess you pick up the paper, you will find all the details in there. Well, Mr. Okodi, the news that really jumped at me, right above the nameplate where the Sultan is quoted as saying, COVID-19, we can't force Nigerians to accept vaccine. And under the sub-headline there, Bill Gates tells Nigeria to spend less on vaccination, more on healthcare facilities. Find that one on page 9. How do you respond to these two?
Well, the we are faced with a situation that everybody knows that you have to protect yourself, you have to be healthy, you have to be alive to even do any other thing. If the Sultan is talking about the vaccine being taken, I'm sure he's remembering the kind of situation that we had about immunizing children against polio, the resistance that came at that time. So if he's advising people about the importance of taking the vaccine when it comes, it is because there had been a resistance before, and he's hoping that this time people will understand the dynamics and allow themselves to be vaccinated against the deadly disease. Now, the other one Bill Gates is saying, there is definitely no need overemphasizing it. Like I said, you have to be healthy to do any other thing. So if you do not have people in a country, what are you, who are the people you are doing other things for? So we have to be healthy to actually get things moving.
In there is, I think, what another point that one of the governors has made before, that we should spend less on vaccinations, on getting the vaccines, as opposed to equipping and enriching our healthcare facilities all over the nation. Do you think that's is it something significant for you, or you think it's a no-brainer?
Well, that particular governor has been making fun of the COVID situation ever since it started. So I guess it's time we also look another way where he's talking about these issues, because he doesn't think there's a problem. So whatever he's saying does not add to solving the problem. He believes there's no problem. So since we know there's a problem and he's saying there's no problem, there is no need listening to him. That's my thinking.
Markwe?
Well, let's continue with New Telegraph here. If you look at what's on the front page, they have this one. Buhari to service chiefs were in state of emergency. So they also have what I'd like to term the story of the day. CDS will add value, secure lives and properties. Major reorganization looms in armed forces. Oni Akeredolu Makinde, brief president on security, is also there. Pages 3 and 4 of the paper. You have a number of other stories here, a few linked to health. Look at this. 4 die, 56 hospitalized as diarrhea ravages Sokoto. Page 6 is where you find details. A very sad one, isn't it? Yes. You also see in the same breath, Governor, 9 aides test positive for COVID-19. President assents law to check virus spread. That's there. And if you look on top of the nameplate, it looks like finally Bill Gates speaks up on the matter. Bill Gates, it's evil to link me with COVID-19 creation. That's what you see right there. What do you make of the conspiracy theories, though? I mean, those who have said maybe this is some attempt by the big men of the world to just try and get everyone to take in chips in the name of vaccines and things of the sort. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, unfortunately, almost everything we do is subjected to over 20-30 conspiracy theories. Nobody knows what is real any longer. Rather, people are not willing to believe in things they are looking at directly. Now, even if it was somebody conspired to do anything, we are in it. It's killing people all over the place. So it is real. We are seeing it. Now, you're talking about vaccine and you're talking about chip. As far as I know, the vaccine is supposed to be a liquid substance. If it's injected into your body, how does it now turn to a chip inside your system? Because I know that chips, when they are implanted, you know something is being implanted in you, but this is a needle going into you and leaving liquid substance there. How does it become a chip? You understand? But we are in
But you've heard the theories, right? You've heard them say
definitely a whole lot of them. A whole lot of them. Initially, we saw theories that it was something being created in China to be used in chemical warfare that escaped. That was the first theory. People swore that they saw these stories of a colonel who said, even if I die, but I'm doing this to save the world. Where has all those things come to? China lost people. US is losing people even as talking. Everybody in the world. So who actually conspired to do what to who? That is a great question.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I don't know if his statement, his response right now has any effect on those who continue to link him with the creation of COVID-19, or will I say attempts to make money off vaccines and things of the sort. I don't know.
A whole lot of things actually do happen behind the scene, especially among all those big pharmaceuticals and all that. But if you do not have any clear-cut proof about anything, why are you accusing the man? After all, polio is wrestled to ground zero now. That's Bill Gates. For several years, he was on top of it, matching Rotary. He would say, bring 100 million, I'll bring 200 million. And that's how polio went off. So are you saying he was creating another thing so that his money will keep doubling? How can he be one of the world's richest and all he's doing is making money from donating vaccines all over the place? So how does he really now make the money if he's donating vaccines, not even selling them?
Well, I think that's a big question those who make all of these accusations have to answer. But let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Well, take a look at News Direct now. Well, yes, we'll come to that lead story, but don't forget this. FG to shut down third mainland bridge for 72 hours. When I saw this and somebody was like, are you sure you're reading the right paper? Because you thought you heard this before, right? Well, yes, it is. It's another round and it's going to happen. So people should just look out. You get to read the story and see when is this scheduled to take place. Well, one thing I can tell you is that the completion date, they say, had been moved by 1 more month as a result of the protest. But to that big story on the front page, COVID-19, violators of face mask law risk 6 months jail. Buhari, you think this is going to work?
Well, let's hope it works, because that's part of our problem.
Let's hope
we hardly obey laws in this country. We're always looking for ways to circumvent them. But otherwise, wearing face masks is for your own good. Why should you even need a law to compel you to protect yourself against a disease? But funny thing is, I have noticed that in most public places, yes, they insist on you wearing a face mask before entering. But immediately you enter, everybody out there, including the people who are supposed to be enforcing it, nobody's wearing a face mask. If the guard is letting loose inside, even government offices, they will insist you must wear a face mask before you enter. But immediately you pass the gate where you were screened, you see everybody going about without face mask. So it has come to a point that we really will need a law and an enforcement, because it's not the law. We have plenty of laws in this country that have made this place safer and better, but nobody is obeying them. And even the people who are supposed to be enforcing it also help in circumventing it. So, Temale, I really hope that we comply for our own good.
All right then. Okay.
Yes, we still have a blueprint. You see this, Buhari to service chiefs. We're in a state of emergency. I'll pray for you. That's the addition we see there. This one says, our promise to secure the country stands. We'll meet Nigerians' expectations, as according to CDS Irabo. Omwagege Ndume Hill president. Northern governors urge consolidation. Appointment of service chiefs not enough. That's according to NEF. They also have the story, break COVID-19 protocols, go to jail. But quickly, let's look at this one. PIB ready April, says Gbajabiamila, as stakeholders hail move. Are you optimistic that indeed this PIB will eventually see the light of day in April as they're promising?
Okay, I really wonder what is keeping this bill. Everybody's been running away from it. When I say everybody, I mean, you can remember how many years we've been in the process of passing the PIB bill. And yet, our main revenue as a country comes from petroleum. So what is the big deal in regulating it properly?
Well, this is where it is right now. Do you think that it will be out before April? That's the big question.
Well, yeah, the public hearings are going on now. So if they work according to their timetable, it should really be out.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Chuks Oko is former special project editor of Vanguard and Diet newspapers, publisher The Clarion newspapers, and managing editor Nigerian Express. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you both.
Well, the program continues. Don't go anywhere. We're only just getting started. Do grab a cup of coffee and see you on the other side.
Welcome back. Well, yes, we will be talking about the Coronavirus Disease Health Protection Regulations 2021 signed by the President. We've got two gentlemen, as you might have seen in that welcoming slide. Dr. Paul Ananaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joins us via Zoom from Lagos, and Professor Oyewole Tomari also joins us this morning from Ibadan. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, part of the provisions of this regulation, Part 1, which was talking about restrictions on gathering, indicates that 1, at all gatherings, a physical distance of at least 2 meters shall be maintained at all times between persons. 2, notwithstanding the provision of Regulation 1, no gathering of more than 50 persons shall hold in an enclosed space except for religious purposes, in which case the gathering shall not exceed 50% capacity of the space. 3, all persons in public gatherings, whether in enclosed or open spaces, shall adhere to the provisions of Part 2 of these regulations. 4, the provisions of these regulations may be varied by guidelines and protocols as may be issued from time to time by the Presidential Task Force, that's the PTF, on COVID-19 on the recommendation of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. So it goes on. There are provisions where they talk about the penalty for this, which happens to be Part 4, 31, that's under offenses and penalties. Any person who contravenes the provisions of these regulations commits an offense. 32, any person who, without reasonable cause, contravenes a direction given under Parts 1 and 2 of these regulations commits an offense. Then Part 33, any person who, without reasonable cause, obstructs as authorized official from enforcement of these regulations commits an offense. And then 34 of the same Part 4 says, an offense under these regulations is punishable on summary conviction by a fine or a term of 6 months imprisonment or both in accordance with Section 5 of the Quarantine Act. So, gentlemen, let's get to it. Let me start with you, Dr. Ananaba. As a lawyer, coming up with this, there's been several people trying to internalize this in their own way. How does this sit for you in terms of implementation and the signing of this law?
Well, I think that it is good that our government is a lot more proactive at this point. Obviously, we've been ignited by what is going on across the globe, particularly in the United Kingdom. Theirs took off on January 6th. So since within January, our country is able to put up its own, I applaud that. We should be proactive in these health issues. Gone are the days when it was being discussed as to whether COVID-19 is here or not, whether it is serious or not. Most households can now say, yes, there is COVID-19. And so we need to deal with it and deal decisively with it. You are asking whether these restrictions can be enforced. In my part of the world, we used to say that you don't tell the deaf man that war has begun. As people are dying continuously now, nobody will tell his friend that there is need to comply with these regulations. That will reduce the requirement for enforcement. But I do not think we have the personnel to enforce. If you look at the regulation, it goes back to the police, civil defense, although it has fund, road safety and all that. But I would have thought that there will be special health enforcement team that will be enforcing this COVID-19 framework, because it is a very serious pandemic. Nobody can doubt that. You could see the figures everywhere. Perhaps if we have had that earlier, this resurgence may not have come to the point it is now. Let me also tell you that if we are talking about enforcement, the regulation says it's a summary offense. So I'll be asking some questions as to, will the enforcement judicial system be the overcrowded courts, the overcrowded magistrate courts? The regulation does not say whether mobile COVID-19 courts will be set up or temporary courts for that will be set up. Those are the issues. That's my first thought as I respond to your question. Thank you.
Because thinking about that as well, and then looking through some of these provisions, because they said the police are expected to enforce this. So what comes to people's mindset is that, well, who knows? If they see that you're not complying with that, or if they, in their own estimation, think that there's a violation, they arrest the person, and then who knows, at this point, it may be that they take them to the courts. But when they then talk about any person who, without reasonable cause, what do people expect in that case? Because can people hide under that and say, no, there's a reasonable cause as to why I'm doing A, B, C, or D? And who determines what is reasonable cause?
Well, the regulation defined to some extent what is reasonable cause. The regulation says, talks about medical emergency that will require that, particularly that can excuse someone. It talks about natural disaster, and then it talks about other compelling situations. So you get to the point that reasonable cause is not completely let loose. So it has to be something that has to do with medical emergency or natural disaster or compelling circumstances along that line. So you don't come up and invent your own reasonable cause. And of course, you see, when the law talks about summary trial and conviction, before you will have the time to do that or bring up all these issues as to why you have a reasonable cause outside these well-established ones, you would have been convicted anyway. But the issue is, which courts? Will there be tribunals? Have you gone to the courts and to see how crowded the courts are? Particularly when the shutdowns also compounded the huge caseload of the courts. How many people will you take to court in a day? Which courts? Who will take them? Are the security agencies themselves complying with this? And let me also give you a striking feature of this regulation. The regulation excludes face shield. So if you're on face shield, you will be arrested. How would that translate in practice? Those are the questions.
Well, okay, we'll come back to that in a minute. Prof, I know that the government has expressed, the PTF now, they've expressed frustration at different times as to Nigerians not complying with this, how we need to improve compliance and observing those protocols. They go on and on. But do you think that in terms of our approach, do we really need the law to ensure people comply, a law such as this one?
Thank you very much. It's 11 months now since we had the first case, and we're just getting up a law or regulation, as the president calls it, to for most people abide by those non-pharmaceutical interventions. I think it's 11 months too late. And if you look, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm sure the sound will let us know. We're using a law that was in existence since 1926, if I remember, during the quarantine law of 1926, although amended at different stages and times. So first of all, that also tells you about what kind of country we are. If we have to wait on use a law of 19, which has not been really thoroughly amended. If you check that law, the disease is talking about smallpox, which had been eradicated more than I don't know how many years ago. So I think the ideal thing would be persuasion. We have failed in that. But even if you look at the regulation, it says the responsibility is on the people. I mean, if you own a premises, and if you as an individual, I think the responsibility should be on you. Ideally, as the son has said, the complication of getting all this, enforcing the law in the constitution where we are. And I know, I mean, like we all know, it just takes a little bit of one person to enrich their pocket rather than enforce the law. These are some of the areas. So rather, I would wish that we have spent our time more on persuasion. And I said it at the beginning, that if the government had laid the emphasis on the fact that the most important person in control is not the PTF, it's not the president, it's you, it's me as an individual. If we have been carrying that message right from the beginning, I think maybe we'll be better off than having this law, which, as you said, we have difficulties in enforcing the law. But that's why I keep going back to that the responsibility is on whoever owns the premises or you as an individual. So that's my point about it.
Yeah, but Prof, how do we persuade people? Because this law even covers markets, malls, open places, and they're supposed to be liable as well. So one wonders, in terms of, because they say they've been talking about this for a long time, and people don't seem to comply. Can we persuade people in a market area to comply with this? How is that going to work?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, for persuasion, you keep at it. You keep showing, it is kind of how you bring the awareness. You keep bringing to the realization of the people, in other parts of the world. Here we hide those things. It's only recently when a few big people get sick or die that we talk about it. Of the thousands of people, of the over 100,000 cases that we have now, how many of the people on the road have died that we have actually brought out to the public? When you bring that information closer to home, when a senator dies, who cares? How does it affect me? But when my neighbor dies, when my breadwinner dies, then those are the things we should be stressing, rather than putting all the emphasis on one or two so-called big men who die. We should get down to the level of the people. A has died, is from this village. B has died, is from that village. And then we bring it down to people then begin to realize that it affects me as much as it's not just for the big men alone.
Well, Prof, still talking about that persuasion, because it was something that came quite strongly on my mind in preparing, for this conversation with you, because clearly a lot of information has been deployed to people, but when it comes to communication, taking it even further down to persuasive communication, is essentially saying that people need to own the process. Now, by these regulations, the president is putting the responsibility of deploying this persuasive communication, if you want to put it like that way, on the operators of the various open places, the parks, leisure parks, hotels, restaurants, hospitals, schools, and the rest of them, to take charge of ensuring this. But in terms of persuasive communication, you have also told us in the, all of you in the medical practice have told us that there could be complications even for those who recover from COVID-19. So perhaps the death of someone may not be the only thing that we want to deploy in terms of persuasive communication. So taking it down to the people for them to own the process, other than the death of a neighbor and how it affects someone close to people, what other things should be involved or included in the persuasive communication to the people?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'll go back by the example of we had with the polio in Nigeria. You remember there was the time when people boycotted the polio vaccine. It took for us to get the people back, to get down in the northern parts of the country where it is a little easier, to get down to the traditional ruler, to the village head, to the ward head, to the family head. It took for that message to use what the people are commonly used to, like the village jester, the village clown, or what do you call it, the village musician, to get involved. We brought this right down to the level of the people, and that convinced them. And you brought people who had the disease, people who had the disease themselves to come in and join in that population. So like you said, people must own it. It must get to the level. So when I saw all these, it is a responsibility of that, it is a responsibility of that, I kept laughing that we don't seem to have learned from the errors of the past, of the lessons of the past that we have with polio. We should have deployed this information. And it's not now. I mean, the internet, the social media has been loaded with all kinds of information. We had to be proactive, as Stan said, to counter those meetings as they are occurring and not wait for this thing. Let me give you one little example. You remember when we had the drop in numbers at a particular time, I think it was during the summer holidays. We suddenly started having drops in number. And then the message got dropped, oh, COVID is gone. It took the PTF another 2 weeks to say that because we're not testing during the summer holidays that we had those drop numbers. But then it was too late. People had already believed that the thing was gone. So all those, and then people coming on at that time for PTF to say it. Also when they say, oh no, you see, we never trusted data before, that kind of thing. So you have to be proactive. When anybody says something against it and you have the fact, give it and give all the facts. Don't leave any gaps. The gaps are meant to be filled by social media. And when the government says, I'm doing this, I'm not doing it, say what you are not doing. Tell the people how much you are. It's a human thing. And let people know that they're not all supreme. So when you say, I succeeded in doing this, then tell them where you have not succeeded. And people can take you for what you're saying. And when you now bring these messages around, people then begin to believe you.
Well, it's interesting, Prof, you speak about filling some gaps. So let me take this to Dr. Nanaba, because looking at the regulations, some say there are gaps that need to be filled. There are areas we need to understand what this means. You ended by talking about reasonable cause and how this regulation defines reasonable cause. But you also said that it didn't quite define it well enough, because you see that it ends by saying ETC. So really ETC is ETC, anything. So help us understand this part 3 that talks about mandatory compliance with treatment protocols. And 27 says persons confirmed to have tested positive to COVID-19 by an NCDC accredited laboratory may not refuse isolation and or admission to a designated health establishment for management of the disease. That has been quite an issue. So when you see may not, does that mean they have to comply, or they have the choice to comply, or otherwise? What does that mean, really?
Well, thank you. You see that this is these are legal provisions. When the law makes an exception for reasonable cause, it will now say may not, because if you have reasonable cause, you will not be found liable. That's what that means. But beyond that, I have an expert in the medical field here, a prof, distinguished professor. I don't know whether he will agree with me that these regulations, yes, they came 11 months late. These regulations did not go far enough. Because, it's not only issues of where warship, buses, ship, aircraft that are the issues. That's several other points which we needed to cover. One is this issue of stay at home, outdoor services, hospitality, tourism, and all that. There's several issues that I thought that if administration that there have been more experts
because of the connection. So, pardon me, it's a bit shaky with the connection. Since you brought in Prof earlier, let's see if he agrees with you. I'd also like to put in the fact that, so you've talked about we need in persuasion more than regulation, even though you say the regulations came 11 months late. Do you think that maybe if we're talking about something comprehensive, maybe the NCDC Bill, in quote, that was what people called it. Do you think the NCDC Bill that caused a lot of controversy last year would have been comprehensive enough?
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree very much with the stand that the thing is not comprehensive enough. As it is, to me, it looked like it was a kind of rush regulation. There are a lot of gaps in there. However, that is the point. There's no way you can make a law that will address every conceivable situation. And that's where you and I come in. And I keep saying it that the law is okay for those who will disobey. Every country has had the law. But then, in addition to the law, is the fact that the level of compliance in those countries are much, much higher than our own. Therefore, their laws, are very easy to follow over there. People will follow the law, will go along with it as much as possible. It's almost the reverse here. It's like, I'm sorry to say to the lawyer, here in Nigeria, it's like when the laws are made, the first thing we start thinking of, how do we break that law? How do we go around it? How do we, circumscribe the law and so on that nature? If that is this first set, my first reaction when I saw that thing was that they are creating opportunity for whoever is going to enforce the law to make money in his pocket. That's the kind of the nature of our country. And that's why I think it is important that it's going to be really difficult. I remember the NCDC bill that we are talking of, in which people said was too draconian. Of course, yes, some of it was draconian, but it was much more detailed than this one. And that we actually addressed every issue. But I'm sure even the areas where there are those draconian laws, there are also lawyers who are there to make amends, either in the law courts or something, to ensure that nobody's individual right is contravened. However, it's a balance between my right and your right. Mm-hmm. If you're going to insist on your right and insist on mine, then there's a big of a problem.
All right, Prof. Dr. Ananaba, let's bring you in as we wind down on this one in less than 60 seconds, if you can. Do you see this being enforced in a sense that we don't compound what we're trying to guard against in the first place? By that, I mean, if one is arrested for, quote unquote, allegedly or suspected to have violated this, how are they supposed to prove it, wherever they take the person to, that he was arrested because he violated it?
Those are the issues I harped on earlier. I agree with Prof that this regulation was rushed. Perhaps when the UK did theirs on the 6th of January, so we needed to also show we can put up our own regulations. Otherwise, it needed some deep thoughts. For example, there's nothing about funeral service there.
No.
There's nothing about neighbors. There's nothing about exercise. There's nothing about how long you should, even if you will not, everything must not be sanctioned. About regulation on going out, working from home. For example, some employers are going to fire some employees for not coming to work. These are all regulations that will people know. Employers begin to think, okay, we should now begin to reduce the number of days we are working. And like in my office, I've reduced the number of days each worker will come to work. Now, when you talk about compounding, it will certainly compound it. Where do we have, if somebody is sentenced to 6 months on this point, do you know that in a day across the country, there may be conviction for up to 5,000 persons. Where do you have the detention centers? And before the detention centers will accept these people, they will have to go through COVID tests.
All
And
right,
when they are
I mean,
accepted,
these are issues
yes,
that
when
we're
they are
going to
accepted
keep
in the
focusing on
detention centers,
as we progress, but actually I think there's a part there, part 2, when it talks about operation of public places. They did actually talk about fitness centers, so perhaps that talks about the exercise areas. But
no, that's
so
not
many
what
areas.
I'm talking about. Sorry, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about exercise in your neighborhood.
Oh,
People play football on the streets.
well,
They are regulating. I'm not. That's what I'm saying. It needed to be comprehensive enough. When you step out of your house with your neighbors to do exercise, must it not be? Must it be regulated? Can't we spread COVID on that? These are the points. So by and large, I think that having this is better than not having any at all. And I also want to make the point that since it is quarantine, under the Quarantine Act, it's in the exclusive legislative list, no state should start tinkering with this. We should apply it as is because it is from the exclusive legislative list. I want to call on the bar, the NMA, and other safety professionals to come in. These regulations can be reviewed so that we'll deepen it and make it richer and more robust and helpful to Nigerians. Thank you.
And we'll also continue that conversation much later. All right, then, welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, all eyes are on the service chiefs. And why not? There's huge expectations, even though sometimes don't expect much. But look, too much is given. You know what they say about that office. Well, let's get to Markway. We've got some gentlemen there to weigh in on the subject matter. Markway.
Indeed, we have with us Engineer Muazu Magaji, who is APC national stakeholder and member of the 2019 Presidential Campaign Council of the same party. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
And we also have with us Honorable Dachong, who is a member, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. You're welcome, Honorable.
Thank you. Morning, Marpe.
Well, Nigerians clamored for change, change the service chiefs, and now we have change. And everyone is looking to them for, you know, should I say redemption now? You heard the president saying, we're in a state of emergency. The paper that made me chuckle the most was this one that said, we're in a state of emergency, I'll pray for you. Should we be looking at prayers now? Is that what we're, you know, is that where we are at? But you must admit that we are indeed in a state of emergency.
Absolutely.
So for these chiefs to hit the ground running, first we'll ask, do you think that the president has put square pegs in square holes? Is that your first impression when you look at the profile and the antecedents of this new service chiefs?
Yeah, well, I will say, looking at the profile of the service chiefs, and they have been involved in fighting insurgents over the years. They have worked with the former service chiefs, and just like we were saying, the Atahiro and so on and so forth was in charge of the theater command and so on and so forth. So with what we have on ground, I will say, yes, square pegs in square hole, but in a stagnant position. Because with the situation we have now on ground, it's not just having people with capacity, but looking at the problem, analyzing the issues. Do we have institutional capacity?
When you say in a stagnant position,
in a stagnant position,
what
because
does that mean?
in a stagnant position because they have been involved in virtually like they have been people behind the scene. And if there have been people behind the scene, they know the issues. And if they know the issues, why is it that they were not able to solve the issues till when they are being made service chiefs? So these are critical and analytical questions that we need to ask. That if you were there when the issues were on the top and heated moment, and you were not able to advise your superiors to be able to handle the issues till we wait after 4 or 5 years for you to come into the hands of affairs, then where are we? But I looked at it critically, that with the situation we have on ground, it's not about the capacity, but it's about the institution.
The institution of the military.
The military entirely, our security institution. I have looked at, look, we have as much intelligence that we need in terms of whatsoever issues are happening within Nigeria in terms of insecurity. The DSS have enough information, NI has enough information, DI has enough information. Our problem is operation.
You don't really have enough information.
They don't have.
Oftentimes we talk about the failure of intelligence, but let me quickly ask you to hold your thoughts. And let me take the, the thoughts of Engineer Magadi. Your party has been drumming up support for these new service chiefs, who, I mean, as he's pointed out, at least two of them are well known to the media. Correct. The first, for instance, the Chief of Defense Staff, briefed the media constantly, almost on a monthly basis, correct, on how the operations was going with Lafia Dole in the Northeast. I remember the team from Channels Television constantly making that trip every month to Borno, correct, to get briefings, bring it live to Nigerians as to what was going on there. We also saw when a mistake was made in Iran, when civilians were bombed in Iran, it was this the current Chief of Defense Staff who's waiting for confirmation. I think you're waiting on that one very soon about whether or not they need confirmation. Who came out to brief the public to say this was what happened. We killed civilians accidentally with the bombings in Iran. So these are no strangers. They have led the operations before now, even though, yes, they of course report to their bosses. But they are aware of the security problems. Why do you need them to drum support for them again?
Well, thank you very much. I think, first of all, we have to recognize that this is an intervention. The Nigerian citizens have been calling for this change, and Mr. President have answered the yearnings of the citizens. We could say that it's late, but it's better late than never, because at the moment we have new service chiefs. This has been a very critical element of the discourse in the polity. And now we have Major General Leo Irabo. Like you said, it's been very active in the theater of providing a solution to this bedeviling security situation, both Boko Haram and other situations. He's been a transparent soldier. He's been professional. And right now, there's a bit of a warm feeling in the military cycle that he is going to lead with that level of transparency. And as citizens in a democracy, we need soldiers with that approach in terms of the way they communicate with citizens. The same thing with General Atairu. Atairu is also a soldier who was active in the theater of war in the Boko Haram enclave. Of course, the controversy was that he has been pulled out 4 years ago.
Yes, he was removed.
Yes.
And he was actually charged for ineffectiveness.
Yes, I think, look, if we look at military operation, we can look at a tactical and strategic approach. I think right now, the fact that he has been brought back, it's probably that he proposed a different tactical approach and strategic approach, and now the expert may have reviewed the situation we are in and proposed to the president that that approach may be the best. And therefore, you always have to have a position and stand. And I'm glad that we are bringing somebody with a different viewpoint. And if you look at the other service chiefs, I mean, look at Rear Admiral, for example.
Before you go to the other admirals,
yes,
do you think that it's important that that be acknowledged by the presidency?
No.
Because indeed this news was out there at that point in time, and then there are those who will be questioning if our new Chief of Army Staff, and the Army is very critical in this battle,
yes, indeed.
if the new Chief of Army Staff has been in charge of Operation Lafia Dole before, and he was removed for perceived ineffectiveness, and he's coming back as Chief of Army Staff, don't you think that there ought to be some acknowledgement of that on the part of the presidency, and perhaps some justification to say this is why we have brought him back, so that at least people are buoyed, they are, encouraged
to recognize that what
this
is
is not
happening
change for the sake of change.
Correct. Look, what better acknowledgement do you need to have this historical background, and then for the president to say, you know what, this gentleman who was pulled out of this position is now brought back, which means the president needs a change of strategy, need a change in tactics. And there is a recognition that that gentleman's position could be the best position now. I think we don't need to have a word from Mr. President to say this is what we're doing. The fact that the team has been changed and swapped with that history, it clearly shows that the president wanted, look, you need to remember the president himself said it, that we are in this together. I am a general, you are a general, we're a product of the same system. So the president knows exactly why this swap took place. In fact, the swap is even more important considering the circumstance of the history. So we are looking for, look, we know that you cannot be repeating the same thing every time and get a different result. Meaning that if we want to get a different result, we get somebody with a different viewpoint of the problem. And therefore, bringing Atahiru on board is clearly saying there will be a change in the way the federal government approach this security challenge. For me, that is what it says in holistic terms. And you need to also see definitely how this gentleman was managing the operation before. It's different. His strategy has been a more coordinated intelligence. Remember, there was a crisis within the security architecture of the country when there were no coordinations, no communications between the various arms of the security apparatus. This gentleman, his position was, we cannot win this war if we do not coordinate. And there were power positions differently, even including civilians who were actually tempering. There was a letter that came out in public space by the National Security Advisor saying to civilians that you are interfering with the security apparatus of an operation of the country. And I remember vaguely that this position of Atahiru was that coordination between the various arms, the NIA, the DMI, the DSS, intelligence is more critical than brute deployment of force on ground. And not only that, I think his approach was also that social security is an important component of this operation. He also, I think, I was privy to some of the documents that says, look, you have to have a different approach. There is a national sovereignty issue, which is policing our border and which is the military cooperation. Then there is the homeland security issue, which is basically saying the operators of the security apparatus within the borders of the country need to coordinate, talk to themselves, share intelligence, and basically provide, well, the military are policing borders by bad actors crossing our borders and also bringing in arms and also fighting insurgents across our borders. So you basically ring fence the whole country, and then the Homeland Security Operation will deploy the various arms of our security, the police, the DSS, the NIA and DMI, and share intelligence and make sure the clusters of these operators, bad actors, are identified and are surveillanced and are dealt with effectively and decisively. Now, the problem has been that lack of coordination within the security architecture had resulted in basically pre-knowledge, unfortunately, of operations of military or police or other intelligence agencies leaking to some of these actors. So there was even all sort of accusation that this has now become a commercial operation rather than a security operation. So believe me, right now we're very happy to have new service chiefs because we need a change. And now we have the Major General who is well respected, like you mentioned, as Chief of Defense Staff. A Major General who is very respected as Chief of Army Staff. A Rear Admiral who is celebrated now by the men in his own sector on board. And we have an Air Vice Marshal who is also very well known, very well respected within the service. And they're all in charge now. What is important now is the President said we are in a state of emergency. I like that recognition that we have not gotten the solution yet, but also we are in a salvage situation because this mission needs to be salvaged, this situation needs to be salvaged, so we're looking for the most creative ideas from the service chiefs. You need to remember the stagnation of the promotion because of lack of relieving of the service chiefs have resulted in very low morale in the whole service. So right now, there is celebration that, 2 years to the end of this, 2.5 years to the end of this administration, there are new service chiefs. Meaning now they have gotten to the peak of their career, they will give us their best, they will come up with new ideas, and the other officers will feel like, you know what, 2 years down the line, we're going to also get some mobility. So everybody is going to put in his best.
Well, some people will say if we're to go with what we already saw before, maybe they shouldn't get their hopes up just yet. But just before you say, before you intervene, I know you want to quickly say something. Let's flip this to Lagos now, because I hear my colleagues have questions for you. Gentlemen.
Well, actually, we do have a guest here, so they can just hold their compounder for a while. Igbe Akparaku joins us right here in Lagos studio. He is the chairman, Governing Council, Policing Nigeria Awareness Initiative. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today. Well, all of this talk about new service chiefs, what is expected of them, where they are coming from, and how to proceed how do they all sit with you, especially when we see that your of the Police in Nigeria initiative concern?
Yeah, for me, another part of our development partners' mindset, even if we change service chiefs 10 times without doing the needful, we'll still not get the result.
What's the needful in this case?
The needful is until the grassroots policing, intelligence, feedback mechanisms are activated in Nigeria, we will not get the answers of insecurity situation result. The difference between the security operators, the operatives themselves, the citizens that were supposed to be supporting their services, being separated from reaching one another, the linkages are broken off and no linkage synergies. The people are scared of the security agencies operators. The entire system is looking like it's a two-way thing where some persons are standing the other way and these other ones are standing this way as an opposition of different interests.
Now,
is the reason we are not having results on our intelligence operations.
Yesterday we had a Major General, a retired Major General, and he did allude to his point when he said that now that they're on board, that there will be synergy. So would it be right for us to perhaps assume that that synergy will extend to cover some of those issues you raised now?
Yeah, we will be very happy. Nigerians generally will be very, very happy if the new service chiefs will come up with a clear picture of development partnership relationship between them and Nigerian citizens. Because one, their job will be far easier for them if they open a relationship with Nigerian citizens in a clear picture of partnering for the progress of intelligence gathering and then synergizing with the citizens, especially on the platforms of covert operation interests to support their operational effort to give us results. We really will be appreciating that the welcome note comments are put to action, and Nigerians are really expecting so much from them. So giving us any comment at this point, we'll be putting them on the focus line because we expect them to do exactly what they have said.
You know, regarding these ends and, you know, piecing them all together, look, with due respect to the police, I'm just wondering, do you think that they've actually demonstrated that capacity, capability, you know, such that, well, they can be relied upon in insurgency scenarios such as this one, especially when people say, look, they've not been able to get the kind of results or be out there themselves because nobody stops them from performing what they have to do?
Are you talking of the police now?
Yes, the police.
The Nigerian police force structure, generally, have a problem that over the years have remained as a menace that needed to be solved. The high ranking of the police gives so much powers to the senior personnel of the police force, and the rank and files of the police force have little or no clear knowledge of relationship between the citizens and the operations in their hands, especially when you come to the aspects of investigation. Investigation in Nigeria goes with interrogation, where the officers are supposed to go out there to search information to what they need to do or put together to unravel crime. The police will prefer to pick a suspect into an interrogation room from where this person is tortured, and at the end of the day, the tortured evidence maybe gathered will be used as evidence to be used for prosecution. That alone scare intelligence operations. That alone separate the citizens completely from their friendship. Yes, the simple word is police is your friend, but is it truly that way in the practical terms? No. When you get to the police station, you see boldly written, bail free. Has any bail been free? No. Several things that have happened that have made citizens to separate themselves completely from relating with the security agencies. Because police are relating with the people one-on-one, which was supposed to be the best and the easiest way of relating with the citizens and gathering intelligence to support other agencies. Before now, you have the civil defense, put out as an agency that was supposed to be helping to gather intelligence from the field for maybe this, to support the effort of the operational force and intelligence. But because civil defense have become a unit, an armed unit, where they can now pick their intelligence, enforce it themselves, intelligence gathering in Nigeria became a very big problem to solve. The reason that the Nigerian police are not able to unravel some of the crimes or support the military or other channels to see that intelligence is unveiled and at the same time prosecuted appropriately is because the synergy between them, the synergy between security agencies is not anchored in the best manner that it was supposed to be. The mechanisms that guide intelligence gathering are completely shattered. They are not aligned. So the picture about police doing well or not doing well, we will still have some time to get to that point of, first of all, getting it right. If the present Inspector General of Police, who is putting his best on ground, but his best is not really giving us what we are still looking for yet, because down here, we have so many persons who are not trusting the services of the police, and then too, the police officers themselves are not also helping matters because so many of them are still lacking trainings. The professionalism is still not there. Police officers are still going out there drinking during working hours and doing all kinds of things that are not meant to be done. We cannot really be coming to the air and be painting it very smooth when out there everything is not all right. For me, we are looking at encouraging the security agencies in general. That is not all about this unit or that unit. The Office of the National Security Advisor still have a whole lot of work to do by trying to see that in as much as the service chiefs have been changed, other agencies still have their own problems. They should look around and see how the synergy between these agencies will be fine-tuned. And then at the end of the day, Nigerians, if we have a synergy that welcomes a development partnership between the grassroots and the security agencies' operations, generally, Nigerians will come to the point where even civil defense, police, and all the rest will be trusted. It's not all about police even. And it shouldn't even be police because, one, everybody keeps saying police are the, the operative agencies that are close to the people and all that. It's gone beyond that because the trust between the citizen and the police has been breached.
All right, so there's more to come from our guests, both in Lagos and Abuja. Plus, we'll be going to the streets as well to find out what do the people think of all of this, including all of what has been said here today. That will be in a moment. Don't go away. Well, our man Chris Elems, he'll tell us what part of Lagos he is and what the people think. He's there to bring that to us this morning. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Chamberlain. How are you this morning? Actually, I'm reaching you live from Fadeyi here in Lagos. It's on the ever-busy Ikorodu Road. And, of course, the road has even gotten busier since the partial closure of the 3rd Mainland Bridge. So a lot of people now take this route. And it even gets worse when you have tankers all around here. But we do know that the big story at this moment is a change of service chiefs. Nigerians had clamored for this for a very, very long time owing to the security situation in the country, even though the Minister of Information will beg to differ with anyone on this, you know, going by his recent pronouncement on the level of insecurity in the country. Well, just when Nigerians felt so tired of the agitation, the big news came and the service chiefs were changed. Right now, the question is, how do they respond to the task before them? And what do Nigerians really expect from them? Because I know that expectations are high. Nigerians want to enjoy safer country, safer environment. They're tired of all the stories of insecurity being bandied around. I have with me some Nigerians on the street. One of them is a youth activist, James Usega, who happens to also be from Ondo State, right? Yeah. Well, he's a young activist and, of course, a politician and a writer as well. Yeah, James, talk to us. What are your expectations from these new service chiefs? Talk to us.
To whom what is given, much is expected. But I like to say to Nigerians not to expect so much from these people. Why do I say that? Because at some point, you will notice that when somebody gives birth to a baby, the baby will not just walk overnight. The baby will have to crawl, from crawling to walk, and then it begins to run. Now, these service chiefs, they are just getting into the system. So when they get in there, there is every possibility for them to, rejig the system. They have to restart all over again to see how best they can give their own maybe strategy and, of course, solutions to what the Nigerians are really expecting. Yes, expectations are high, but we shouldn't just forget the fact that these people are just getting in. Now, I also need you to know that the president has been in a situation where the appointment is coming a bit late. The situation has been late because we've been crying about this. Senator Ali Dume was the one that sponsored this bill as of June, and the president is just bringing this to effect now. So you can imagine the time it took the president for this to happen. So what is the president saying about all of this in his body language? What does it mean to people like us? What do we think? Are these people going to provide solution at the long run? Because even if they will do anything, it has to be in line with the boss, which is the president of Nigeria. If the president wants them to really take all the banditries, all the insecurity that we are facing out of the system, then it means that they have to obey what the president says. But if otherwise, then they cannot just walk. So we shouldn't expect magic from these people.
Do you think there will be a situation where the president is not interested in the security of the country?
See, definitely, every president will want our country to be secured. But looking at the situation of things, I just made mention of the delay, how long it took the president to finally hear. Now, do we expect magic overnight? No, it won't happen. That is what Nigerians need to know. These people are they are not spirits. They are human beings. There is a time for a child, when you give birth to a child, the child will first take breast milk before it takes another, solid food. So it's a gradual process. When they get into the system, it's a gradual move for them to rejig the system. And when they rejig the system, it means that they have to follow a due process to provide solution.
Okay. I also have with me a lawyer and also a development activist. He would be talking to us, sharing his views with us on this. Tell us, what would you expect them to start doing at this point? Patrick Inobeme.
Good morning, Nigerians. The truth is that
you can use your
first and foremost, we have to clap for the president for eventually listening to the voice of Nigeria by changing the service chiefs. And in line with his delayed response, as we know prior to now, we also hope that he will follow this with the necessary retooling of the military by providing them with the necessary military armament, with the resources required for them to function professionally. So, but given what some of us know about this regime, that the problem has not actually been the service chiefs. The problem has always been the political will to ensure that there is security in Nigeria. Why am I saying this? How long did it take the president to respond to the cries to change the security service chiefs of this country? It took the National Assembly to even pass a resolution that the executive should act to change the service chief. But in a well-ordered democracy, the National Assembly was not supposed to pass a resolution for the changing of the service. They were actually supposed to begin impeachment proceedings against the president for failing his primary duty, which is the security of lives and property of Nigerians, which he swore on oath to uphold. So that is why if you take two primary issues which are the basic security challenges of Nigeria today, you will see that the government is not ready at all, or we have not seen anything, and no blueprint, no concerted effort, no discussion is going on with a view to addressing them. Let's take the two issues one by one. The first issue is Boko Haram. It's on record that the last known genuine effort at fighting Boko Haram was the one mooted when General Ihejirika was in power. But what happened? There was a concerted effort to defeat Boko Haram once and for all at that time. What happened? The political elite started crying that the guy was engaging in genocide, was killing Northerners, was killing everybody. And President Jonathan had to remove that general. And from that time till now, there has not been any genuine effort.
Okay, let's say, what's the way forward? If you want to say, if you were given or saddled with the responsibility of finding a way forward, what would you advise the presidency?
The way forward is to come up with a holistic approach to resolving the security challenges of Nigeria. You cannot continue to say you want to embrace repeated Boko Haram, who has taken up arms against the nation. You enlist them in the security apparatus of Nigeria. You enlist them in the Nigerian military, and you expect there to be peace. There will be no peace. First and foremost, Boko Haram war must be faced with all seriousness. If it needs killing them, they have to be killed so that there will be peace. Secondly,
okay, just 10 minutes, 10 seconds.
Secondly, the issue of Fulani invasion of Nigeria. It is not, to me, changing the service chiefs is just the beginning. The head of immigration, the head of custom has to be changed. And the president has to be serious. Let them come up with a blueprint for all these people to work. Our borders cannot continue to be porous, whereby every criminal, every marauder is free to enter Nigeria and do whatever he likes and move on. Those are the problems of Nigeria.
All right, Nigerians speaking. Well, I tell you that the discussion definitely will continue on different platforms. But right now, I'll take you back to the studio from Fadeyi or Jibowu right here in Lagos.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Chrysalem, Zalman on the streets as you saw there. All right then, Kaide.
Well, yeah, it's interesting to hear what Nigerians have to say. But Honorable Bagos, I'd like to get your opinion on this as well. Maukwe hinted on this much earlier, so let me just get you to answer this squarely. So we've had, opinions regarding the process of appointing service chiefs. So we've had, senior advocates and lawyers and other people saying, well, this is not the proper way to go about it. The National Assembly should be in the know before the service chiefs are announced, or appointed rather. We saw what happened in 2015, the same process. The president appointed them and then they were eventually confirmed by the Senate. And now it's happening again. So really, are they service chiefs yet? Are they acting in acting capacity, or they're not until the Senate confirms them?
Yeah, well, constitutionally, they are acting. Because the Constitution says that the National Assembly will approve or will screen them before they are being sworn in. So constitutionally, definitely they are acting, and even the acts that establish the Army Act and so on and so forth, Section 18, subsection 1 and 2, clearly states that they will be screened by the National Assembly. So as it is now, they are acting unless otherwise. But if they immediately resume, then that is a constitutional breach. But they are acting. When the National Assembly resumes the next few days, we expect that the Senate would screen them, and as well as through the joint committee. But then, for now, they are definitely acting. The president has the power to nominate, but the appointment comes when they are being sworn in. So, but if someone will just say that they have been appointed and they have started operations, then definitely that's a constitutional breach. But constitutionally, they are acting as it is now.
I mean, because we saw they had a meeting with the president. I mean, in fact, in 2015, when the previous service chiefs were appointed, it was actually an appointment, and then they said it was an active capacity before the National Assembly confirms them. But this case has been taken to court, interestingly, by Festus Keyamo. And this is an opinion of a lawyer, looking at all the provisions, saying that the president lacks the power to to appoint new service chiefs, effect or approve changes in the military high command before or even after briefing leadership of the National Assembly and before requesting the National Assembly to confirm the appointments, essentially saying that even before they are announced, the National Assembly should have given some sort of approval. Do you agree with that, seeing the court cases and then the interpretation of the Constitution?
Well, you see, most of our issues in this country is not following due process. Number one, the National Assembly does not have the power to go and nominate, but the president does that. So if it were an issue it's supposed to be that, look, this is my nomination, and send it to the National Assembly or in consultation with the National Assembly, if that was not done, then that definitely is an issue of just administrative procedures. But then for their confirmation, like I said earlier, definitely it has to come from the National Assembly. But then the National Assembly does not have the power to go and outsource who will be the service chief. If we had the power to do that, we could have done that since, because the National Assembly has called for the change of service chief almost like 3 times when we thought that the problem of insecurity is about the service chiefs. And later down the line, we really realized that the problem was not even the service chiefs. That's why we called for an audience with the president. But then the truth of it is that the National Assembly must screen the service chiefs.
Okay, well, let me ask Mr. Akbaraku here. We just saw our correspondent, Chris Lems, talking to those Nigerians out there. What do you think about some of those recommendations that they actually proffered?
You have heard what the young man there said. The other one is looking at not expecting so much from the service chiefs. Let's change that picture, that Nigerians should expect more than what the former service chiefs did from this one, especially on the grounds that these service chiefs were all in operations in line with the former service chiefs' government. So for any Nigerians to think that they are coming new to the face of the insurgency or challenges Nigerians are facing, that would be under expectation. We should expect very, very high result from them because they are all experienced. They all have participated in the effort of the former service chiefs. And if these former service chiefs didn't do well, they were part of that government. So they should write their names now in good because they have the opportunity to correct it. The other person said the picture of what he felt is the problem was that the former service chiefs did not meet up the expectations of Nigeria, and of course refer to the former service chiefs, the Ihejerika and all the rest of them, who were out to render services according to him, that the services were genuine and then post out. Here, we have realities. Let's leave the past. The reality and the way forward should be more important to Nigerians at this moment. These service chiefs on board, they are not spirit, and they are not also foreigners. They are Nigerians. They have known what our problem is, and they are in the field already. So they should go straight to the point to dot the I's and cross the T's from the existing reports they have had. They know what to do to bring Nigerians to that point of happiness. At the moment, you are also witnessing, especially you, the press,
You know what is happening in the southwest here, and you know what is happening in the southeast. The drama of the military man that went to a beer parlor to drink, and then from drinking, it ends to fighting, and from fighting, invasion of a community, and right now, there is a large crisis going on there, and I don't know how many people, as at this moment, have died as a result of that crisis. Now, the one in the west here, where the Fulani herdsmen, the community, and the volunteer structures that have decided to take laws into their hands to do what they feel that government has failed. They felt the government have not protected the people enough by allowing Fulani herdsmen to enter communities or farmlands to take over the environment, as a result, breaching peace, and then leading to the point of anarchy where the citizens are now looking helpless, which was what I think yesterday with another sister station, I was telling them one point that I feel should be given attention to. In a situation where security agencies in the country have decided to barricade their offices with all the weapons you can think of, weapons that are supposed to be positioned in different points of, or different locations in our streets, to show a force of, the show of force to Nigerian citizens, and then those who also think that the Nigerian security agencies are not strong enough. These weapons are used to barricade the security agencies' offices. Now you go through the road, especially in places like Abuja, you see where roads are barricaded, shared major roads for the purpose of adding support to the barricading of security agencies' premises. These are not making Nigerian citizens to have trust on security agencies.
Perhaps, Ambassador, there is a critical element we generally seem to be missing or not giving due attention to now. Well, yes, all eyes are on service chiefs, but perhaps, there is a need for us to pay attention to the fact that this whole exercise is all about the people.
Yes.
You referenced something the other time, the fact that, we seem to be, sidelining or sidestepping other security agencies. The police, for instance. The primary function of the police is not to fight crime. It is to prevent crime. And from what the references that you made in the Southwest and the Southeast and even in the Northeast, do you think we're even doing anything significantly to prevent the crime as opposed to fighting them?
It adds to what I said earlier, that one, the training and retraining of the police officers, which was supposed to be the major focus of the police hierarchy in the government, is not given attention the way it was supposed to be. The police officers are expected to be trained with the relevant knowledge and information that they would use as experience to execute their operations. But because the training and retraining services are not given in full focus, in a situation where, let me divert a little, in a situation where security agencies will take their men out of Nigeria in the name of training, and then you have maybe in the list, you see training, counter-terrorism training in Israel, and maybe these men are flown from Abuja to Lagos, and from Lagos fly to Songa Farm in Cotonou, all in the name of training, and at the end of the day, certificates will be issued as though they were trained in Israel.
Well, this is what you're saying, Ambassador, is still talking largely about the personnel themselves, but I was hoping that we'll be able to pay attention to the people, but we're running out of time. We have to thank you very much, Ambassador Igbe Akwaraku, who is chairman of the Governing Council Policing Nigeria Awareness. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning. Well, Honorable Bagos, before I hand you over to Maokwe, the same question, but perhaps in a different way. You are a member of the House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. First of all security agencies are supposed to prevent any form of crime or incursion into Nigeria. But now, because it's all come in, we seem to be paying a lot more attention to fighting the crime and giving far less credence to preventing other crimes. That's why we now have from kidnapping, we have insurgency in the Northeast, we have banditry, kidnapping, and everywhere, all other crimes in various parts of Nigeria. We are losing all of that, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I agree with you because, in my opening statement, I said we have the capacity, but our problem is institutional capacity. In the 21st century, we are still talking about ground movement in trying to address the issue of insurgents. We are not talking of technology. In the 21st century, you're trying to fight crime or to prevent crime, and you don't have technology, you are not going anywhere. I can give example, for instance, here, if you don't have CCTV, someone will just come and pick a phone or something and he goes. But if you have CCTV and you're looking at everywhere, somebody, before even picking the phone, you already know who has picked the phone. So if we are not looking at technology to be able to address this issue in terms of prevention, before even reaching to the crime issue, we will not go anywhere. We'll always wait till when it happens, we start moving like fire service. And if the people and the service chiefs we have today get into office and they don't have, the institution does not have capacity, will not go anywhere. Talking of what do we have on ground, like the president said, he will pray for them. And actually, yes, we will all pray for them because do they have the equipment? Do they have the satellite approval? Or do they even have the satellite to be able to comb some of those areas in where we have insurgents? No. And unfortunately, when Atahiru was removed, and people were saying, as far as I'm concerned, it was collateral damage because he was given 40 days, and what equipment does he have to go and look for where Shekau or where the Chibok girls were? He doesn't have the equipment, apart from ground operations. What kind of guns do our people have? Check the military even on the streets. You will see their own kind of AK-47 is an outdated AK-47. See the tankers we have, see the military vehicles they have here. How can they really be able to address this issue? So institutional capacity is very important. And that was one of the issues that we said, look, we want to have an interface with the president. Let's know the real issues, because it's not just about changing the service chiefs. We want to ask the president, what is the issue? What are those things that have made you not to deliver in terms of addressing the issue of insecurity in the country?
What about when you interface with the service chiefs themselves? Are they not honest enough?
I can assure you the interface with the service chiefs will be lack of funds, lack of equipment. That has been the problem. And we shouldn't be political with the truth here.
So would you say that, we have reason to really be optimistic? Yes, there has been a boost of morale of some sort. We could see that with the rank and file, some of the reactions that we saw from the barracks in military circles. However, apart from that, not much else has changed. Our guest in Lagos chronicled, some of the other challenges with other sister security agencies that they'll need to work with, especially those tasks with internal security. So is there really much to rejoice about with this change that we've seen?
Well, I honestly believe that every change will bring something different. And I think that the fact that we have new service chiefs, we're expecting them to come out with a strategy that gives us hope that the justification for their appointment can be celebrated, can be recognized as a major milestone in the administration.
Despite the challenges that they'll face?
Look, the challenges are there, and the challenges are systemic. But somebody has to come up with a solution. And therefore, we are looking for this solution, and that solution includes changing the team. But you have mentioned something very important. Coordination. One of the chaotic situations in the administration has been that people are pulling their spaces and protecting it as if we are not one administration. The National Security Advisor now have a golden opportunity that new service chiefs are on board. Whatever influence, whatever mindset the previous service chiefs have that were not fully cooperating with the office of the NSO can now be rectified. The other arms of security within the nation that are civil security apparatus can now be coordinated effectively. I think coordinations and intelligence gathering is the next big challenge for this new team. We have an existing team. The Inspector General of Police is not new. The NSA is not new. There's another element that we are forgetting. The Minister of Interior it's an important element of this discussion. We tend to put him aside because there are so many agencies under him that can help in bringing intelligence and coordination to secure the country.
What do you also say about, and we're totally out of time, but what do you also say about those who say the Southeast was not reflected in this appointment? Do you think that would have any effect whatsoever, especially now that there's a challenge with the Eastern Security Network?
Look, I think every time we talk about important appointment, what I'm very happy about this appointment is nobody is even talking about who they are, what tribe they are, where they come from. We're all talking about their background, their professionalism, and everything. Security is such a very important thing that we should weigh the individuals that are brought forward from the point of competence and professionalism. This is very important. And please, because we're running out of time, there is something very important. I have heard from many, many quarters, important quarters, that the security challenge the country is facing is also predicated on very many foreign influences on our system. I think citizens have responsibility here, that when government is trying to secure the country, there are citizens who have some sort of linkages to other interests outside the country must recognize that we have no other country than this Nigeria. We must be patriotic. There are elements in this country that honestly compromise the security of the nation because of primordial and personal interest. We need to understand that other big nations are interested in this country. This country has potential. It's big, it is well positioned in Africa and in entire world. We have to watch out for diabolical plans that we can be used for, either we know or we don't know. This is a challenge for this country, and I think we are facing that as part of the collective security challenges that this country is facing.
It's a fine place to leave it. We have to thank you gentlemen for coming on Sunrise. I wish we had more time, but we don't. We have to go now. Engineer Mwazu Magaji is an APC national stakeholder and member, or was member of the 2019 Presidential Campaign Council. And Honorable Dachong Bagos is a member of the House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
We're going to run through your mails, but we'll take them nonetheless. We have a few of them. Chamberlain, do you want to kickstart it for us, please?
Sure, why not? Thank you. We've got and George says, I would like to simply say that the change of service chiefs will not solve the problem of insecurity we have in Nigeria today. I personally think this has come a little too late in the day, as things have fallen apart completely in our society today. We all have to tell ourselves the simple truth regarding the security situation in Nigeria, period. Whoa.
Well, God's will thinks that, well, he believes every Nigerian, or most, will welcome the decision of President Buhari to change the service chiefs, which he says, by the way, is long overdue. But whilst it may be one of the steps needed to address the current security situation in the country, says especially what we're seeing in the Northeast and North Central, I believe it really goes beyond just changing the service chiefs. And he goes on, as you can see there on the screen.
Oliver has an advice via a tweet. Have you considered the merits of merging all of Nigeria's security apparatus into one security force? For example, one Nigeria Security Forces, NSF, may be a necessary step towards rejigging Nigeria's security architecture.
ONSF. Magba.
Well, Don Seg says, talking about policing in Nigeria, says, can we deliberate and brainstorm the appointment of the IG, DIG, and AIG of police, CG of immigration, and his deputies also? We have more internal security issues and do not hold these senior officers accountable, or of these parastatals accountable. He doesn't think we're holding them accountable enough.
Big books, you're talking about COVID-19 health protection law, saying it's dead on arrival. The first set of people to disobey the law are those that made it. They are marketing social distance for COVID-19 and also encouraging social gatherings for NIMC. Wow. There you go. Food for thought, I guess. That is the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you again right here tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain. So
I'm Kayode Kyodo.
I'm Ayo Makide. Please be safe.
And I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Thank you so much for watching.